And now we can talk about Bayern Munich and them going into this match. It's been an important couple weeks for them. Everything has been about this 125th birthday of the club, right? It's a year where they financially made a big leap forward with cracking that 1 billion euro mark. They're now looking to regain the Bundesliga title. They have beaten Bayer Leverkusen in the Champions League and looking to walk through to the next round. And so, everything looks great. It looks so good, in fact, Stefan, that, and I said this jokingly, that they could even afford handing Bochum, their friends Bochum, that we all know the story of VfL Bochum and Bayern Munich and the fan friendship and how these two clubs are really close to one another. Makes an odd couple, in my opinion. Here's this super rich club from the Bavarian capital, and then there's this grey mouse from the Ruhrpott, and yet those two are like the unlikely friends. It was, in fact, so good that Bayern was able to hand Bochum 3 points in the relegation battle, because it kind of felt like that's what happened here. In some ways, the second half was a complete capitulation by Bayern Munich. Vince and company, we're talking about a club playing without a striker. He played with a 4-2-4 without a striker there. It was Harry Kane finally getting a rest in this match. Bochum's first and only second win in Munich. The only other win was back in 1991 when a certain Jupp Heynckes was in charge for the first time at Bayern Munich. This is how historic this win is for Bochum. It's a great celebration for them. And I think it really makes the relegation battle interesting, because here are Bochum now only 2 points behind St. Pauli, right? But in terms of what this means for Bayern Munich, it kind of feels like they got away with one here, because they were able to rest players against this really important fixture against Bayer Leverkusen. Vincent Kompany can now field his best 11, and everyone will have had a good rest, and they don't really have to worry about the Bundesliga either.
Yeah, no, absolutely. My heart goes out to Heidenheim, Kiel, and St. Pauli this weekend, by the way. Heidenheim getting a draw against Hoffenheim, Kiel getting a draw against Stuttgart, and St. Pauli getting a draw against Wolfsburg. 3 games they probably all should have lost, and then they look at the league table on Sunday night and see that Bochum have beaten Bayern Munich, and then Union Berlin have beaten Frankfurt, and Bremen, who maybe aren't really in the relegation zone, have beaten Leverkusen. Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. It was a game that Bayern Munich did not take seriously, so much so that they showed up wearing Spain tops, which I thought was very bizarre. I don't know what that top was supposed to be.
What happened. You know what happened to the Spain 2014 leftover jerseys.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah, I mean, absolutely looked like that obscene nonsense. Although I know a few of our subscribers have bought those tops, so I don't want to be too mean about them, but they look like Spain tops.
How?
It's the big badge as well. Yeah.
There's only 2,000 of them.
I think some of our subscribers got some. We got some very passionate Bayern fans in on our subscriber chat.
Respect.
Or they picked up some dodgy ones online. I can't say for certain.
Augsburg was wearing the knockoffs.
Yeah, well, I thought the Augsburg ones looked nicer, to be honest. But I always like the Augsburg tops. Yeah, I mean, it was a game where Company played the B team and they were atrocious. Bizarrely, Rafael Guerreiro scoring 2 goals, 2 proper striker goals as well, which just continues to continue the kind of paradox that is Rafael Guerreiro, the guy who's been signed as a left back, but seems to be better as a midfielder / winger / striker for both Dortmund and now Bayern Munich. And thank God he wasn't at pitch, because he seemed like the only one capable of scoring. Serge Gnabry misses a penalty, Leroy Sané missed a number of chances. Harry Kane comes on and misses a chance close range at the end of the game. After what was probably the most pathetic dive I've seen of the season, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah. Can we talk about that? Because there was a lot of subscribers who were like, "That's a penalty." I'm like, no, that's.
I don't think I can talk about it, because I got absolutely harassed on YouTube last week for moaning about Harry Kane, and then when he obviously scored against Bayer Leverkusen.
So Harry Kane, this was like, how they called Jürgen Klinsmann, the former Tottenham legend, a diver. That was a Klinsmann.
Yeah, it was shameful. I also don't understand why he didn't get booked for it. I mean, not that it makes a difference, because he wouldn't made anything, but he should have absolutely been booked for it. Anyway, yeah, it was. I mean, the thing is though, you can't you can't score 2 goals against Bochum and not expect to win that game unless there's something seriously wrong in defence. And there seriously was something wrong in defence. Sacha Boey is a shadow of the player he once was in France. I think he'll be moving on shortly. I thought Eric Dyer was atrocious in this game, absolutely atrocious. Ito wasn't great. And Per Urbig, the young goalkeeper, which is not really his fault, having to be thrown in here because Manuel Neuer injured himself celebrating.
I actually thought he was good. Urbig was really, there were some people in our chat who were like, "This is all Urbig's fault." I'm like, he saved what he could save, and what went in. What was he supposed to do?
Yeah, by no means his fault that they lost this game. I think there was one game in particular. He made a big save actually later in the game. I think it was a Sissoko goal though that kind of went over the top of him, and he just looked small. Well, I guess Manuel Neuer. You just have seen Manuel Neuer there again. That's not his fault, and I guess it's going to happen with any goalkeeper there. But I don't know. The whole thing fell apart, and obviously the Palhinha situation, which is just absolutely baffling. We're talking about a guy here that. Let me just quickly check actually how much did he cost Bayern, and how much he was in terms of their record transfer?
55 million, I want to say.
Yeah, I've just quickly pull it up on this incredible website called Transfermarkt, which you guys should all check out.
The site is good. I hear good things about it.
Yeah, we're talking about the 5th most expensive signing ever in Bayern Munich history, and he hasn't played. And I mean, I don't think he started in a long time, actually. This is his first start. He started against Stuttgart in the previous match, but he's obviously just been out with an injury. Prior to that, he was struggling for game time. Nobody knows what this guy's going to be doing at Bayern Munich next season, if he'll even be there. And in this opportunity, he gets himself sent off. Now, you could argue that it was maybe a bit harsh, which I think it probably was a wee bit harsh. It's more, and obviously the German FA have come out now and said it's just a 1-game ban because he didn't think it was deserving of 3 matches or anything like that.
So if Chris Williams was here, he would say that if they reduce a red card to just a 1-match ban, that's them admitting they were wrong.
Yeah. I mean, I thought, by all means, I didn't think it was a straight red. I didn't think there was anything vindictive about it. It was one of those ones where the other guy kind of kicks the bottom of his foot as opposed to Palhinha stamping down on him, if that makes sense. But we're still talking about a guy who Bayern Munich spent, 50 million euros on, and nobody has any idea where he's supposed to play in this team. And it's not even as if he was playing particularly well when he came into this side. And when you consider all the kind of drama around Joshua Kimmich and him now signing a contract at Bayern, the fact that Leon Goretzka still seems set to leave the club, you've obviously got Pavlovic, who's kind of supposed to be emerging as this kind of future kind of star in the centre midfield. You just kind of have to assume that Palhinha will be leaving Bayern next in the summer, and he'll leave having done just about nothing at Bayern Munich top. And he's probably going to have to go down as probably one of the biggest flops in Bayern Munich history. And, I'm looking at the players above him in terms of prices. Michael Olise, 53 million. De Ligt, 67. Lucas Hernandez, 80. Now, maybe De Ligt and Hernandez could rival him in that regard. I mean, Hernandez is more so injury than anything else.
They really haven't been good spending big money lately.
No, they haven't. A really, really odd signing. Guy turns 30 this summer as well, so it's not even as if they can sell him off as a young player. I just think it's bizarre. He finally gets a start and he gets sent off. Maybe it's just bad luck, and you just have to chalk it up to that. But a really, really bizarre signing, and someone who continues to just offer absolutely nothing to poor Vincent Kompany whenever he does throw him into the fray.
I mean, Sasha Boy is probably happy Palhinha exists because it kind of overshadows the terrible transfer that he was. Because what was he, 30 million from Galatasaray? There's been a few odd ones that we probably at some point too we have to shine a light on, because for the longest time the record transfer was Javi Martinez, right? And he was then beaten by a certain Tolisso, who also didn't work out. It was also not a fantastic signing for the club. Even someone like Renato Sanchez also didn't work out. Like, it's been a while since they spent big money on a player, and it actually worked out. Like the Javi Martinez one for 40 million euros, and that was a watershed moment for the club at the time. It was definitely a transfer that worked out fantastically. Like, Javi Martinez is... it's not that long ago that he's retired. I think he's actually still playing somewhere in Saudi or something like that. but we'll look back one day and say, okay,
he's 36.
He's 36. Yeah,
and he's playing in Qatar.
He's been playing in Qatar. I was pretty sure he was still kicking the ball around somewhere. But he will go down as one of the best transfers the club has ever done. It won them the Champions League within a year. He was the missing piece. And ever since then, they've kind of tried to do that again, right? I actually think this Palhinha move was supposed to be the next Javi Martinez. They thought, like, here is a player that we can bring in. He will settle this defensive midfield. He will solidify this club. He will be the anchor that, like, all these creative players can play around. He will be to Joshua Kimmich what Javi Martinez was to Bastian Schweinsteiger. And it's just not that same level. And then, as you said, like, Javi Martinez was like, what, in his early 20s? You think he was like 23, 24 at the time?
Yeah, 23.
So he brought him in for like over a decade. That was a solid signing, a really, really solid, strong signing that a lot of people at the time thought, okay, this is going to be one that can really backfire, and it didn't. It worked out fantastically for the club, and Palhinha is like the total opposite of that so far. It just hasn't worked out. And I think you need to also add, like, Javi Martinez wasn't that well known at the time either. Jupp Heynckes knew him because he coached Athletic Bilbao, right? So he knew him from the time that he was there, and I said, well, this is really good young Spanish midfielder that is relatively unknown, and if we sign him, he will transform this club. I think they kind of thought, like, oh yeah, Palhinha is just sort of this unknown midfielder playing for Fulham, like, maybe he can do the trick for us too, and it's just hasn't worked at all. And it kind of also shows you how in recent years they have kind of fallen in love with these Premier League players that kind of don't really work out for them either, right? Sadio Mane comes to mind too. And that's, I think, something that at some point they have to look at and say, well, maybe this particular transfer strategy that we're on at the moment is just not working out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously Palhinha was a Thomas Tuchel signing, as was Eric Dyer, and it's something that Bayern have to and hopefully are getting away from, this kind of reactionary approach to the transfer market where they just sign whoever the head coach wants in that given season, which obviously just doesn't work from one season to the next. And, hopefully, I mean, Vincent Kompany's did a perfectly good job. I think Kompany's one of his kind of underrated attributes is he has kind of just made do with the squad he's been given, as opposed to probably making too many big demands. He's obviously picked up some decent signings this summer, so he's been happy with that. Obviously, Mike Olsey's been a revelation at Bayern this season, but I think Palhinha will kind of go down as this kind of sore point for the club, where they look back and think, well, that's what happens when we give head coaches a little too much power at the club. We give them too much influence. We need a strong sporting director. We need a strong kind of director of football, whoever else, whether that's Max Eberl or, whoever else at the club, to avoid those situations. Because Tuchel just wanted ready-made players he could use in the Champions League, because all he wants to do was add in our Champions League to his CV. He's not really interested in how the team's going to look in 5 or 6 years' time, because that's just not a head coach's job. So, I think Palhinha's unfortunately a 51 euro warning sign to Bayern ahead of this summer window to say we have to make sure we keep our eye on the long term here, and don't get too reactionary to things.
Well, no, absolutely. And I mean, we can assume that they make it through the second leg in the Champions League, right? Just touch on that before we wrap this up. It's so hard to preview a game that you think is over. Because, Leverkusen without Wirtz, and then Bayern Munich having rested all these guys. I'm pretty sure Vincent Kompany is just playing his strongest 11. Minus Manuel Neuer. Although, again, I do think Urbik actually played really well, both when he came on against Leverkusen in the first leg, and I actually think he played really well in this Bochum game too. Kicker gave him a 2.5, which is a really good grade. So, we can pretty much assume this second leg will be quickly wrapped up. Unless, I guess the only way Leverkusen can get into this game, they have to score early on.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll probably see a better performance from Leverkusen. I actually wouldn't be surprised if they won this game, to be honest with you. I could see him scoring a couple of goals. I think the issue is I just can't foresee a situation where Bayern don't score themselves. So, I would not be surprised if this game ends 2-1, 3-2 to Leverkusen. They put in a solid performance. In a roundabout way, Vert's missing means that Alonso will probably go with like Palacios instead, and he'll hopefully play Schick or some form of striker. But you'll probably play Palacios in this kind of midfield three and hope to kind of dominate the midfield, which might mean that Leverkusen kind of, as we saw in the previous tie at the Bayer Arena, they did really dominate possession and create chances. So you never know. They could cause an upset, but a 3-0 deficit would be really quite something. And it would require a proper implosion if Bayern were to lose this tie after Wirtz has been ruled out the second leg, would be quite something. But equally, Leverkusen might go into this match feeling they have a point to prove after the first leg. They might feel they have a point to prove after losing to Werder Bremen, and they might feel they have a point to prove because Florian Wirtz is missing. They'll want to go out and do it for him. So you never really know what could happen in games like that, and that's why I think we'll see a much better performance from Leverkusen here, but I just can't see them overturning a 3-goal deficit without Bayern scoring at least one goal.
I tell you what, if Bayer Leverkusen somehow managed to overcome this 3-0 deficit, I'm going to take back my statement that the Bundesliga title race is over, because then anything can happen.
Oh yeah, I mean, if they overturn that to knock Bayern out, then yeah, the rest of the season is going to be chaos.
Yeah, I mean, that is the only thing. I saw a projected lineup here from Kicker, and they think Leverkusen still won't play with a striker.
Yeah, well, in that case, just turn over, watch the Liverpool game, do yourself a favour.
Exactly. It's up front with Frimpong and Teller, which I'm not sure that's correct. If you need to score goals, you probably want to play with a number 9. But we'll see how it plays out. We'll recap it afterwards. We'll have to see how we're going to do it timing-wise, because it's a travel day for me. A long travel day for me. I'll be watching the game, but I might be in a few different locations. So the podcast might not be with you until Wednesday morning German time when I do arrive in Germany. But it could also be with you right after the game, depending on where I am when the game ends. If I'm like rushing to check into my flight, then that's not going to happen. But if there's a quiet hour at an airport launch, then we'll record it then. Wouldn't be the first time a podcast has been recorded from an airport launch. So we'll do our best to get this to you as quickly as possible on the Substack. If you haven't subscribed to that yet, and Stefan, you said you're doing your newsletter on Florian Wirtz, so I'm looking forward to that. I'm still have a few ideas in my head, and I'll work something out for mine. And then Matt Fords, of course, will be there with you on Wednesday.